Welcome to the Inspired Evolution, and it is a treat to have a dear brother here today. Emmanuel, how are you, brother?
Great, mate. Thanks for having me on. Very big pleasure. Been following your podcast, so very keen to be here, mate.
Yo, an absolute pleasure to have you here. For those tuning into Emanuele Mamo for the first time, amazing musician, love your vocals. Part of the band Acaxia, which I can't wait to dive into the conversation around that. But then also recently, and this is what I was intrigued to get you on board for, was 3i Black Water. I love it.
Yes.
There's this, for those that don't actually know you, right? It's like there's this it's 3i Black Water, which we're gonna find out. But I just I was thinking about this episode coming up, and I'm like thinking Black Water, like Emmanuel, Black Water. And I know you've gone and spent time with the Indigenous, and they're like, Black Water has this kind of rainbow serpent, Black Water kind of energy to it. So I was like, Emmanuel, of course, makes sense, He's Emmanuel of the Black Water.
No, look, it's been a cool little journey with a couple of friends, but it's got a little bit of a backstory, which I'm sure we'll get into today. So
well, hit us with it. Now's the time. Now's the energy. So tell us, Black Water. Where does so first of all, let's discuss 3i. What is going on in this space?
All right. So essentially, myself, I was consuming a product. Something called Fulvic Acid. Not too many people know about Fulvic Acid, but it's found in most healthy soils around the world, and it was something that I started to consume specifically for my diet to help remove and help chelate heavy metals and toxins from my body when I wanted a bit of a lifestyle change. And I would say in my late 20s, 28, I think I started to find this product and realized, I wanted to change my diet, little things like that. And Fulvic Acid was something that would help me kind of detox and, then really get into my diet and kickstart, the type of eating habits that I wanted to get into. So I came across this product and I started consuming it, and a friend of mine saw me drinking it, and essentially it's black in color. Well, Fulvic Acid is a yellowy amber color, but you've got all other colloidal minerals in there as well, like humic acid, which is very dark in color. Contains 72 plus trace minerals, and that there is what I was consuming. My friend saw me drinking it and asked me what it was, and I said, "Oh, it's just water." He goes, "No, it's not. That's Coca-Cola." I go, "No, it's not water. It's not Coca-Cola. It's just water." Yeah. And him being I would say he's a lot more entrepreneur mindset than myself, and he saw an opportunity in it straight away, purely for the fact that the aesthetic fact of that it's black, not even knowing what the benefits of the product were. He's like, "Oh, we need to do something like this." That day there, he did a bit of research. There was no company in Australia doing anything like it, and I'd been consuming it for just over a year at that time, feeling great, and really incorporated it into my diet. And the next day, we had ingredients at the doorstep, ready to start kind of just doing some tests ourselves. And then getting nutritionists on board and getting biochemists on board and working with contract packages and all that type of stuff to get the formulation right, and obviously do a lot of testing on the actual ingredients in our product, so that they're coming from I would say the most pristine sources around the world. And 2 years later, it was about a year and a half, 2 years of developing the product before we actually launched. Now we've been on the market for about a year and a half. We're in, I would say, 300 to 400 stores here in Victoria. We're in about 600 stores in New Zealand, where we've hit markets like Brunei now, Singapore. Export markets going quite well at the moment too. Basically just looking now for a little bit of NPD, new product development. And look, I would say it's a little side venture for us. It's not my full-time job, but it's a side venture for me, my partner Andrew, and our other business partner Christian as well. So there's three of us there. First and foremost, we're good friends, and so I think the dynamics in the business works really well. It's a lot of fun. It's very challenging, but it's very rewarding when the three of us overcome, these little challenges within the business and work together to grow. So, And the name 3i, I guess I didn't even talk about that, but the name 3i.
I love this. I love this.
The name 3i is referencing the pineal gland, the third eye. Also looks like an Om symbol when you
it totally does when you see it on the bottom.
Yeah. But referring to the pineal gland, we don't contain any fluoride, no chlorine, no chloride in our water, anything that you'd find in tap water. Australia is one of the highest fluoridated countries in the world. Whether you believe it or not, fluoride is a heavy metal, and big amounts of heavy metals. There will be some need in our diet for small amounts of heavy metals, but we'll get that from our foods. We don't need it in our water system as well. So we've made it a bit of an ethos for us to have a very clean product, free of fluoride, free of any heavy metals that I would say there's belief around it congregating around the pineal gland and calcification around the pineal gland, all of that. And I guess we thought we'd have a little bit of a play on the name 3i, and that's where we got the name from. So people do ask that question.
I absolutely love it. Well, it didn't click for me, and then when you mentioned it, I was like, oh my god, that's like the English version of the Om symbol. Like that is just symbol. Perfect, exactly. And it's just And I love the deep place from which you're creating this whole intention around just trying to shed what doesn't serve us. I think it's really beautiful. When we spoke last time, you mentioned that it had a lot of where does fulvic acid appear in nature?
Yeah. So fulvic acid should be found in a lot of healthy soils around the world, but the fifth layer of the earth is generally where you'll find most of the fulvic acid in the humus layer of the earth. We source ours from a 32.5 million year old ocean bed that's been underground for obviously 32.5 million years, and there's all these minerals trapped under there, and we take these raw materials, which are stuff like bentonite or leonardite, and then we run that through a reverse osmosis process. So no chemicals end up touching our product whatsoever, and only water touches the product to extract the fulvic minerals. So fulvic acid on its own is fulvic acid. So soils and plants utilize fulvic acid in soils to help absorb the nutrients from soils and transport them into the plant cells more effectively. And in our body, fulvic acid attaches itself to minerals, and then we call them fulvic minerals. And what they do is very similar in our body. They transport those minerals around the body more effectively, acting like a catalyst to drive minerals into the cell. So like I said, we source ours from an old ocean bed under the ground, but you can also source it from areas like the Himalayas, high mountain altitudes. But because a lot of the raw material is exposed to the elements, you're getting a lot of contamination in, I would say, some of these other areas. So, essentially what needs to happen for some of these raw materials found at high mountain altitudes, they need to get washed with petrochemicals and other stuff to refine the fulvic acid. The great thing about our product being sourcing it from underground is that we don't have that issue, so we don't have to use any petrochemicals to touch the product at any point. So yeah,
I love that.
That was a big one for us.
Thanks so much for that. Again, the intention, brother. I love that you're creating this. So I want to tune into what was going on for you when you first came to understanding that fulvic acid was a potential thing in your diet. Like, what was it that triggered you to start going down this path?
Well, I've done a little bit of work with some plant medicine, going back a couple of years now, probably starting about 4 years ago. I was doing some work with some plant medicine, and I needed something. Well, preparing for some of these ceremonies, diet needs to change, and all of this needs to happen. Preparing for these ceremonies, and I struggled with that, like getting rid of coffee and all of that stuff was really, really hard for me. So one of the guys said to me, try and find something to give yourself a little bit of, at the time, try and find something to give yourself a little bit of a flush. And then that's when and not only that, being able to stomach some of these plant medicines was really hard for me as well. So finding something that was, I was actually out looking for something that was bitter and something that was going to taste not too great, so that I was, working, and something quite alkaline as well, for my body too, going into these ceremonies. So it was on the journey of looking for something like that to help me prepare for these ceremonies that I came across fulvic acid accidentally, and that and basically from that point I just started buying this product and feeling quite good off, just your recommended dose of it. And I didn't take any higher doses of like flush doses for the system or anything like that. It was just adding it into my diet. And so, yeah, it kind of came from there. And it's just kind of snowballed from that point, really. So, yeah.
Talking about snowballed, talking about snowballed. So, one of your business partners is also your band member.
Correct. Yes. So, been doing music is my full-time job. Music's kind of what I do full-time.
If you have the opportunity to hear or listen or check out, dude, his music's amazing.
Appreciate that.
Oh, brother, we appreciate it.
Kind words, mate. Kind words. But look, Christian was a DJ. He is a DJ still, but he DJ'd and produced music for quite a while. He toured Brazil and did his stuff over there. And we've known each other for, I would say, over 11 to 12 years now. And I was doing music, he was doing music, and our paths crossed about 4 years ago, even though we had known each other for quite a while, but our paths kind of crossed, and we just said, hey, why don't we just, jump in the studio together? Let's try and, make something happen. And we jumped in the studio together, and bang, magic started, and some great sound was born. I feel anyway, I feel like we really, found something special. That, jumping in the studio, we wrote our first EP up in Mount Beauty. So what we like to do is kind of get out into nature, bring the laptop, bring a little Bluetooth speaker, and start our songs like out in the bush, and then we kind of bring them back and finish them here. But we went out to Mount Beauty and went to his grandparents' little kind of chateau out there in the mountains, and set the place up with all salt lamps everywhere. So we had the mood kind of like spot on with the right lighting. We packed our cars full of pop plants and everything like that, and bring all of our plants down there as well. Set the whole place up so it was like a forest inside as well. And just jammed out music. And Christian he's got some experience from another beverage company as well. So when my other friend, who didn't know Christian at the time, said to me, saw me drinking the water and had the idea of starting a company based around the Fulvic Acid. I introduced Christian at the time to Andrew, and bang, we all kind of just came from there. So, and then, look, I do plan to try and merge the water and merge the music at one point, whether it be, some festival where we can, sponsor with the water and we're playing also at the same time. Something like that would be great. So,
that's amazing.
So definitely got some, there's some lights flashing in my mind about some things that we could be doing, but, I think it's still early days.
I've been reading too many future books at the moment. What I kind of saw was like a scratch and sniff on the bottle, but instead of scratch and sniff, you scratch and it plays a tune. It's just
you open up the bottle and the song plays.
That's really beautiful, bro. So let's have a quick conversation around that. Like, do you ever pause to reflect on just the fact that, hey, like, that here you were just simply going about your daily, just drinking, a supplement that, I'm sure there's many other supplements that are in your diet as well. I've got medicinal mushrooms like reishi, chaga, cordyceps, that sort of stuff in my diet as well. But someone comes up and goes, hey, like, we should do something with this. This is kind of cool. And then you just happen to have in your band, in your crew, as someone that has got some experience in this space already. And do you ever just pause to reflect, like, right place, right time, synchronicity, divine intervention kind of conversation? Do you still pinch yourself a little bit sometimes, or?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, and I reckon most people would kind of go through it where, when those synchronicities are happening and those, that divine timing is happening, like sometimes it can happen, like for a space of, say, a couple of months, and lots of things are happening and you're just like, oh, wow, everything's just clicking together. But then that can die off and you can kind of forget about like that divine timing.
The energy fizzles.
Forget about those. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And you can get caught up in all the challenges. You can get caught up in all of those things. But yeah, I think you're 100% right. You got to stop and you got to say, okay, we all got kind of brought together for a reason. And it, if you really think about it and take your mind back to that point, you believed that, because you felt that, not just believed it, you felt it. And even though, life can sometimes, get us to the points where we don't feel though connected to that as much as we did at that time. When you're going through those challenges, I think, yes, 100%. I definitely pause and, thank the guys, because, there's no way I could have done it on my own. And I bet they feel the same way, that there's no way they could have done it on their own. And, for everything, like with the music and with the water, but yeah, the way it all came together was, we couldn't have scripted it. So it was, definitely from something out of our hands. So,
I love that.
Yeah.
So let's dive a little bit deeper into that, brother. Like you said, you're good friends with everybody that you're creating with. And then also one of the other person, like you're spending full time creating music with Christian as well on the side.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of Christian in your life. But then as you do with with your business and your music and creativity outlet, you're spending a lot of time interfacing with these same individuals. Like just in general, I guess I'm just going to just go and just point the finger to, I guess, what my question really is at the heart of it. It's like, do you conflict resolution? How does that all go? Like, do you guys have have challenges and stuff like that? Imagine like going into birthing a business is like, it's such a tender baby. And just before we go into talk, like now that I've used that, I'm just going to quickly segue, like Emanuele just became an uncle.
I did. I'm on 2 hours sleep, guys. So sorry for the bags under my eyes, because I just got back from the hospital. So, my sister just had her first baby, and little Tiago, his name is. So,
Tiago!
Yeah,
Welcome to the world, little Tiago. You're in good hands. You're in such good hands. Congratulations, brother.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
But yeah, the tribe and the community, like when you're birthing a business, it kind of feels like, you've got this, you feel so personally invested in it that, you can have your own little bits and pieces, like, and then everybody else feels the same way. And then there are places for contention or differences of opinion, and, and then you're spending the same time with your band and your music. How do you navigate all of that?
I think it's just having a deep respect for each one of us. So, for example, I respect Andrew, I respect Christian, I respect their strengths, and I respect their weaknesses as well. So, and we're quite open, and it doesn't feel like there's a lot of ego with us three, and I think that's great. Like, there's ego in everything, but it doesn't feel like we're kind of battling to have to have an upper hand over anything. It doesn't feel like we're I must say there's not much conflict, even I would probably struggle to even think of one time where there was, to be honest. And I think that's great that I can actually say that and truthfully say that. But there is definitely times where our ideas are different, and what I see as the direction might not be the same as one of the other guys. And I think it's just a matter of, I think us being friends to begin with really helped, because we know each other. We know the way to communicate with each other, because we've been doing it as friends for so long, and we wouldn't be friends if we didn't know how to, I guess get along in that way. And
so the thing about that for me is that I totally resonate and agree with what you're saying. But I often hear this as, and maybe like we're just identifying a massive societal limiting belief or bullshit rule here, that because often people say,
friends or friends,
you've heard that, right? And then
And
but in your experience, that's a load of shit.
Not a load of shit. I would say, like, there's definitely times where, for example, before we jumped into this business, the water business, and before we did any of that, me and Christian specifically had a bit of a chat, and we said, look, this is going to be a bit of a responsibility. It may put some toll on our creative outlet, which is our music, and it may, impact us in some way. We have to, we basically had a proper conversation where we sat down, we said, all right, whatever happens, the music comes first. Like, like what we created here, this is our passion, this is our love, this is our joy. So is the water, but it's, the water for us has been a little bit more of a means to create a bit more of a passive income to be able to keep doing the things that we love as well. But at the same time, burst from somewhere real. And I think it's, so yeah, we had that conversation, we've had I would say, differences in opinions on what we think is right for the company, this and that. And yes, it may impact the way we create, for maybe a couple of hours. But honestly, like we're that addicted to being in the studio and writing music and being creative together. Like we love the process that much that it's kind of like, I'll finish work at 9 o'clock from teaching, because I teach music as well. And, I'll finish quite late, and I'll give them a call and be like, hey, come past the studio or go past his and write some music. And, we're always doing that. And it's, it doesn't matter how tired we are or whatever. If we've done, had to go overseas for work, or had to do expos or, exhibitions or anything like that for the water, and talk all day and do that type of stuff. It still doesn't, change how badly we want to get in and create and that type of stuff. And the same goes with Andrew as well. Like we have such a great relationship. Like to me, Andrew's that kind of rock and that pillar within our company, where he's got a lot of experience in business and in managing companies and managing business, and comes from more of the construction background. But ran quite a big business in the construction industry, and really brings, I would say, a lot of confidence to me and Christian when it comes to decision making, when it comes to even direction, things that I had absolutely no idea about either. Like for me, I'm a creative person, and books and money and all that type of stuff. It's like it's not where my head's at. My head's at. Let me be creative. That's I thrive in that type of environment, and whereas Andrew thrives with the challenges of business, and I think that's great. And Christian comes into it puts his own, similar to me, with a creative aspect, but with more of a sales background in terms of, coming in from another beverage company in a sales role. So, I think it all kind of just clicks, and we know where our strengths are. The guys, respect my I would say my creative abilities, and I respect, Andrew's, intellectual knowledge around business, and we respect Christian's knowledge around sales, and we kind of all give each other that freedom to grasp that role and
own your domain.
And trust,
yeah.
Exactly, and trust each other's judgment within that domain. And it's okay to cross. Do you know what I mean? It's okay, for Andrew to come in and say,
to inspire each other.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. I don't like that color scheme. Change that or something like that. Yeah, we just have to make sure that our guards are down so that we can listen. That's all. Not be too attached to our to our ways.
Yeah, you just tucked it in there at the end in a little bit. Just make sure your guards are down. Make sure you're above the line, not below the line. Yeah, of course.
That's right. Definitely
love that, brother. So, hey, in terms of let's take some time and energy to just ask the question of, what does creativity mean to you? Why is it so important to you?
Yeah, good question, man. You could have prepared me for this one now.
Your whole life prepared you for this one, bro.
Look, creativity for me is, in my life, I find it's my connection to, something more than just what I can see and what I can feel, but it's also a legacy. Like I feel like, my creativity is something that I could potentially leave around forever. Like, and, while my body's not here, I'm like, my creations could still be here. Not only that, it's a way of expression for me as well. So, it's a way of, some people like to write diaries and journal, and, some people like to talk out loud, some people, whatever it is. For me, I like to sing, and I like to write lyrics, and, if I'm going through hard times in my life or great times in my life, I like to kind of write it. I'm inspired to express it through music. That's just, I would say, the way I feel like I'm wired, and where I feel like I've polished some skills that I'm able to do it. Like, and yeah, I think that makes it something enjoyable for me, because I'm able to share those things with people. I'm able to make people feel something as well. I'm able to capture moments, through music. But just being creative in general, I think it's just our connection to something a little bit more than what we can see and what we can hear. It's something special and something that can definitely change the world, because I truly believe music can change the world. It can change minds, and like exactly like what you're doing, mate. Changing minds and helping people kind of realize the potential and stuff like that. I think that's really important. And being creative can do that, whether that be a piece of artwork or whether that be a piece of music or whether that be a great podcast by you or something like that. I think it's it's an opportunity to change people, whether they know that they're being changed by it or not. So it's I think it's probably one of our most powerful gifts of consciousness is to be creative. I think because it's when we're not in control of it sometimes, and when we can get out of our own way and just let kind of I would say let your imagination take over, then you're kind of not sitting in that driver's seat anymore, and then you really get to see the magic inside. And when you sit back after you've just done something that you don't even realize what you've just done, and you listen back to it, and you're just like, oh my God, that just came out of my I just wrote that, and that sounds amazing, and then you listen to it over and over for like 4 weeks straight, and you're just listening to the same thing over and over. That's a special thing too. It helps you. For me, it's helped me really learn to love myself as well. It's really helped me build a really great relationship with myself as well. So I think that's important. And I think whether it be making jewelry and stuff like that, I'd sit around and I'd wire wrap jewelry, or the paintings behind us, I'd sit there and I'd paint those paintings, or things like that. For me, it's any way I can be creative, I try and incorporate that into my life. Yeah, it makes me happy. So yeah, that's as simple as it gets, really.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, brother. And did you always identify as a creative? Was it something that you just inherently growing up were just like, you love to sing, you love to paint, you love to create? Or was there a moment that you first remember that it was like, actually, I'm creative?
Not really. Like, I think growing up, I loved my sports, and growing up I was, really big into playing football, and, I was very dedicated to that type of stuff. And, without sounding up myself, I was quite good at a lot of the sports as well. Like I really, it suited me. And I don't know when it happened really. I think it happened in grade 5. I was in grade 5, and I was with my friends from the football team at school, and there was an audition for the school musical. And my friends were like, oh, let's just audition for fun. And so I got up there and I sang, what was it? It was a Human Nature song back then. Yeah. I got up there and I sang a Human Nature song, and the music teacher was auditioning us, and he rang my mum straight after my audition and said, get him into singing. So when I got home that day, and by the way, I ended up getting a good part in it, and I needed a bit of convincing to doing it. But after that convincing, I absolutely loved it. And but yeah, went home. Mum's like, I'm going to take you to singing, and that I think doing music and getting into music was the first time that I realized how much I love being creative. But I felt like I always had a big creative streak inside me. I did love to paint little figurines when I was younger as well, and even singing when I was younger, before I was actually doing lessons or anything like that. I would always grab the hair comb in the bathroom and sing, and I could always tell, like, oh, I can. I always felt like I could sing. I could hear the voices in my head before I sang it out. Like it's like I could actually hear the music. I could hear the person singing in my head, and hear all the notes, hear all the intonations, hear everything. Then I felt like it was almost as I was looking at a picture and able to tell you all the bits about the picture. That's how clear it was in my head, and it still feels that way. So I think that really helped. Being able to sing on key and all that type of stuff really helped. Just. Yeah, I would say propel me into my creative lifestyle that I live now. Yeah, having the ability to do music and express through it. Yeah,
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's the thing that's most present for me is just how I would use the meditative just because that's who I am, but also just how much
Yeah.
flow there is in your creative process, just in terms of like you surrender, and then it's like, wow, like this is just it's bigger than me, and then you get to interface with, wow, what was that, and then just witnessing that and just the grace and the beauty of that journey. So yeah, thanks
That's
for
the
sharing
magic
that with
there.
us.
Definitely.
I love it.
Well, you're welcome.
One of the words you touched on is something that's really dear to me that we haven't really gone into on any other podcast in Inspired Evolution, is the word legacy. And it's interesting that we're having this conversation because when I listened back to episode 0 of the Inspired Evolution, which is something that I actually do quite a bit just to get myself grounded.
100%. Let's see where you came from.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things I ended up saying in that episode is like, because at the time I was a bit like, and I still kind of have this idea that, hey, like this is very digital. Like this is all very digital in this space. And one of the things I mentioned is that, hey, like we're data driven society. Like it's becoming more and more data driven. So you're going to try and consume more and more like data. And there are plenty of podcasts out there. My intention is basically to try and create a podcast. I know that I'm kind of doing the counter of kind of what my intention is in some ways, which is connecting people back to themselves, you know, because yeah, and it's this real thing. And so in there, one of the things that I mentioned was, but I'm inspired by people like Bob Marley that, you know, created something, and their music, their energy can continue to like transcend time and space, you know. And at the time, even I say this in the podcast, I'm like, I know it's a bit audacious to like compare yourself to Bob Marley, but he's my inspiration. So here we go. Do you know what I mean? Like I can't tap the inspiration. So
think big, man. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. No. So yeah, touching on legacy, as you're saying. So in terms of like leaving something behind, or
yeah, like why like I don't think everybody thinks about this, and this comes up a lot in my coaching as well, you know. So one of the conversations we end up having really deeply straight off the bat is a lot of people are doing a lot of things, means to an end, but even in this conversation you and I are having, it's quite clear to you that your music is key to you. And the question that I usually trigger in my coaching early days, like in the first couple of sessions, is, so right now, whatever you're working on, when you pass away, touch wood, I know this is kind of morbid, but when you pass away, will you have felt fulfillment or contentment, satisfaction, having achieved whatever it is that you're working on at the moment? And some people will say, yeah, absolutely, this is the thing that, you know, drives me. Then it's cool. Then it's like all about dialing the knobs and, you know, optimizing the business and all the sort of things they need to do in around that space. But for some people, it's like, yeah, but I'm working on this. And it could be a multi-million-dollar project that they're working on. But then there's this healer or something, or this musician in them, or something random that's tapped in there, and they haven't given themselves permission to even go there, just because this is so shiny, so big, so ticking. And yeah, just society in itself has just has programmed them to focus on this. But when you start asking that question, like, will you feel satisfied when you, like, at your death, like that this is what you contributed, your life's, like, you've put your life, had that stamp on this, they're like, oh, nah. And then it was like, well, what was that thing? And there's always this like budding thing inside. I always thought I was this, or I always had this inclination that I was meant to go do this. And it's like, but you've created this multi-million-dollar thing. And it's like, yeah, but this was always kind of like, you know. And so then the coaching begins for the Inspired Evolution. It's about living the life you love, right? And tapping into your truest inspiration. So then it's like, let's work on that, you know, like let's definitely like optimize this, because this is a means to an end, but this is actually your end. Like this is a vehicle for you to do this, you know. And I think just the way you articulated was so clear. Like you already had that vision in your head, you know. It's like 3i, amazing, you know, and it's doing an amazing thing over here. But I'm really clear that my legacy, what I really want to leave behind, is the music. So I'm happy to invest time and energy here, but this is really what's going on.
Yeah. I think it's not so different to the innate urge that we have to reproduce and have kids and leave, you know, and recreate our DNA and our genes and leave that behind. I think it's not so different to that in a way, you know. To you know, not all of us will have those, or not all of us will have kids, and not all of us will go through that journey. But I think, you know, inside of us, there's those, you know, instincts to want to leave something behind, and I think it doesn't have to be in the form of, you know, reproducing, but it can be in the form of how are you going to leave, you some form of, some memory or some form of what your imprint, what you did here. And, whether that be, my music on Spotify or on somebody's USB, or something like that. And then just randomly, 100 years from now when I'm not around, a song gets played and, somebody dances to it or smiles to it or something like that. Bang, just through those vibrations of my music again, I'm alive again. I think the Egyptians touched on it as well, making all of those big, like tributes to some of these pharaohs and stuff, the carvings and the names. And, they would say, I think it was, I can't remember where I watched it, but I was reading something and it was about when they believed that when the name was spoken again, those vibrations of the name, made the person stay alive. So that's essentially how we live. Exactly. So, and I think that's the same with my music. That's how I feel. And I think even Terence McKenna touched on the fact that, artists and I love Terence McKenna, even if it's just as a bit of entertainment as well. But he touched, he touched on some really great things when he was here. And, I truly believe it was one thing that he said, and it was about artists can change the world. And it is the artists that will shape the direction of where the world goes. It's how we're influenced, and I think it's on a mass scale as well. So I think it's really important what we being creative, what we leave behind, and what the intention is behind as well. Like, are you getting out of your own way and are you just letting what comes through come through, or are you having some kind of manipulation over your creations to have some sort of effect or something like that? Which I think there's always that little bit of element in everything. Every bit of every creation that we make. I think that's just being human. I don't think we can totally remove ourselves from it. There's got to be some form of control over the direction that something's taking form, and that's, I think, us. But if we get out of our own way, I think it'd be great to see kind of what everybody kind of comes up with. And I think everybody's creative. I have some people come in, or I meet people like even through teaching, or and I always love to kind of get into a little bit of songwriting with a lot of my students as well, just to see where their creative aspects are and how they react in that kind of situation where I have to say, okay, I'm just going to play some music now and I want you to improvise. Yeah. And a lot of them are like, oh no, I'm not creative. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't believe that. I kind of think we're all born creative. It's, it's just in us, and, society and life in general can kind of numb that out of us. It can, whether that be through criticism, whether that be through, just self-doubt, all of those type of things, or even like what you said, just where the focus is going. We've got these things inside of us, but then we've got this big shiny thing over here and we're putting all our focus over there. And I think if that's what we're doing, well, then we're not kind of, you're not spending any time being creative. Well, then, you're going to feel like you're not a creative person, but I think it's all in there. And the great thing about, creations and that type of stuff is that it's subjective. When it comes to what looks good, what doesn't look good, what sounds good, what doesn't sound good, it's subjective. Very true. Very true. Who's going to, and I think that's the whole magic and beauty in it right there, is that there is no like set standard for what is good and what's bad. It's, it's like, what do you like to eat? It's the same thing, like, what's your favorite food? And yeah.
But I think sometimes that's the hard thing for people, right? Because that's like, we're all like, it comes back to us being, and this is what you're saying, getting out of your own way, because we're our own harshest critics. That, it is subjective, and then we're kind of the most like hardest ones on our own subjectivity. And it's just like, shit, like that's it's an interesting catch-22.
I know. And we're the ones that suffer for it in the end, because, there's a lot of good to come out of, just allowing yourself to, just see what, put a pen in a hand or put a paintbrush in your hand, or, there's many ways to be creative. And, it's not just kind of, how we think. It can be in so many ways. Like,
I totally relate to you in that, because I, one of my deepest insights from having struggled with depression for 6 years was actually that the opposite of depression is expression. and that your creativity helps you tap into your expression. It's literally expression, depression. So if you can learn to express and tap into that creativity, like it's a fundamental tenet of your health, so that was huge for me. So, people are like, oh, spending time to play the guitar or play the handpan or, get on a djembe. It's me
sounding
looking
good
after
on
myself.
the handpan, by the way.
Touch wood. Means a lot to me coming from you, brother.
Good,
Thank you for your blessings. Hey, I want to go into. I'm conscious of the time we've got here together today, so I just want to, there's just a space that, again, thank you so much for dropping in around legacy, creativity, and I'm loving the chat we're having. So I just wanted to go somewhere that I don't often get to go, but I'm just going to take the liberty of the fact that we are really good friends to be able to dive into this. And if it's, if we can't really go there, or let me know. But I just wanted to ask, because we're talking about legacy, what's your awareness? What's your relationship with death like? Like, have you thought about this a little bit? It seems like you have. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I know just as much about death as what I knew when I started. but I would say it's just having a little bit more appreciation for the time that we have here, just being conscious. And look, I guess I feel like I've gone through some death experiences before, but like, to me, I feel this is just my belief. This is just kind of, I guess, where my mantra kind of sits, and it's in, that death is just the next journey. It's just and only we kind of put the name death to death. We and the meaning to it. Like, whereas, if we take the meaning away, take the word away, it's just a transition, and none of us are going to really be able to say what happens or what doesn't happen, but we can definitely say that it's going to happen to all of us. And I think if we can understand that and truly, which I think it's hardwiring us not to, like,
it's an interesting prayer, that one, that it's not hardwired. And the reason I ask you that is because, like, I like my favorite philosopher, Alan Watts, right? And so he talks about this, and it's like, just why are we not, like, sending people off? Like, when you say wave goodbye to everybody on a ship, and it's like, there's old days they used to have like the Titanic pulling off the pier, and it's like, woo, see ya. And it's like, why? Like, and this is a metaphor that I came up with, but like, but do you know what I mean? Like, why are we not celebrating the passing on? Similar, like you've just shared, like, your opinion is it's the next journey. So if you're going on a bon voyage, wouldn't you be like, hey, have the best time? But it's not like that in the West.
I think because there is no certainty around that, because nobody's been back to be able to say this is what happens. And with uncertainty, I think it's in human nature to fear uncertainty, especially in today's day and age. Like, it's, security is and routine and the, being in familiar spaces is what keeps us, I guess, a little bit less fearful. But not knowing what's coming and not knowing what's happening is fearful in itself. Like, so, to fear death, I think, is just something that we're all born with to begin with, is that fear is in us. And I think, just having a bit more of a relationship with the fact that, I would definitely say some ceremonies and plant medicines that I've worked with have helped me come to that, helped me see, where what I may not have seen without it, or maybe taken me through some experiences that made me feel like I was dying, to then come out of it, with a whole new lease on life and your appreciation for life, but go through that death experience and then feel and then realize, hang on a sec, it was just like, it felt like it was just like, I don't know if you've seen that video of that boy, he's being held up in the water. The water's only like that deep and he's screaming, and then the mum lets him go and he's just standing there. He's like, oh, okay. Like, kind of like that.
That's an awesome metaphor. Yeah.
And I kind of think that's, you know, I hope and not hope, I make myself believe that that's what it is, because that's what helps me live a better, a more happier life. And I think that's all it is. Like, you know, what you choose to believe. And, you know, nobody can tell you what to believe, but I think if you're going to believe something, at least believe something that makes you live a better life. Yeah.
Empowers you.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm on the
Yeah.
same way with you there.
Yeah.
One of the last little bits I wanted to just drop in and just honor and just check in with was, you know, I know you've spent some time working with the Indigenous with your creativity and the music as well. The band's obviously called Acaxia. Anything from that space that, you know, just really you felt like was something you wanted to share, like maybe one of the nuggets you've learned from spending time with the Indigenous here in Australia or something?
Yeah. You know, apart from how amazing their culture is, and you know, how lucky we were to be able to you know, to spend the time that we have up there, kind of working with them, and bringing back some, I guess, some creativity into some of their communities as well. A lot of their songs have been taken away from them. A lot of corroboree, you know, their corroboree has been taken away in terms of storylines broken. You know, and I think, yeah, being able to go back in there and, you know, and, you know, get some kids to come and, you know, just experiment with being creative, you know, song and dance, all of that type of stuff was amazing. But yeah, definitely, you know, that was our first experience up in Barunga in Darwin, in Catherine, sorry. It was quite a hard one. I came back and probably cried for a week straight, man. Like it was, yeah, it was pretty confronting in terms of, you know, I guess the situations that are still here in Australia. You know, we kind of look overseas and we see, you know, some, you know, third world type situations, but you know, we've still got it here. And, you know, yeah, it was quite hard to come back and not want to just kind of jump on a plane and go back over there and keep doing work over there. But I think, yeah, it definitely kind of sparked a flame inside to kind of, you know, honor a little bit of their culture as well in kind of what I do too, in terms of the music as well. So yes, the name Acaxia, you know, obviously deriving from the acacia plants here as well, you know, quite significant plants in for the Indigenous and they grow all over the world as well. But here specifically, it's one of our national emblems as well. And, you know, a plant I consider a very big teacher plant for me too. But yeah, like, you know, I learned to play the didgeridoo while I was over there as well. And, you know, and some other kind of Indigenous instruments too, and incorporated some of them into our music. We got to write some music with some of the elders over there. And, you know, some of the children over there, we got to, you know, teach them. Well, by us being over there, the elders actually taught the children about all the old song names, all the old family names, because what we wrote was a song kind of paying tribute to all the family names in that area. And, you know, I don't even think the kids knew that at that point. And, you know, we got them singing it and all of that. And that was quite amazing. Yeah, look, I just hope that we get the opportunity to go back there again very soon and do something similar. Yeah, it was look, I definitely suggest, like, you know, I highly recommend everybody, you know, try and learn a little bit about our Indigenous culture here. I don't think we're kind of taught enough about it.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think it's really important. There's a lot we could learn, like so much we could learn here in Australia, you know, about just even land care, you know, how to take care of our beautiful country and, you know, and really respect it and manage it properly, you know, and, you know, and stuff like bushfires, stuff like, you know, water management, stuff, you know, all of that type of stuff that, you know, has been massive, you know, through the media and stuff over the last couple of years, you know, water management and bushfires. So, you know, a little bit of knowledge from the Indigenous culture here would go a long, long way with us, you know, facing some of those problems. Yeah, that's my take on it anyway. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that, brother. One of the things that it's just resonating in the back of my head is, people live to be about 100, right? So, the Western version of Australia is only 2.5 people ago, and,
Exactly.
and the Indigenous version of Australia is many more than
80,
just 2.5 people ago.
100%.
So they understand this country, this land, way deeper than we potentially can just through our limited time. And it's such a beautiful country. It's such a beautiful country to call home. So thank you so much for sharing that. And just wanting to reflect that back at you. Probably part of it is intention, whether you like it or not. But yeah, just from one brother to another, like looking at just the way you walk, there is so much of that woven into your being as well. The band name Acaxia, but even for me, when it was Three-Eyed Blackwater, like I said at the beginning of the episode, it made sense. It's like Blackwater, it sounds like an Indigenous kind of, down by the Blackwater.
Well, yeah, I get you. Yeah. But yeah, no, you're right. Look, whether it was intention or not, I think it definitely came from a real place. And I think that's, that's what feels great. And, I think if we just go by what we feel, it's so easy to tell, but so hard to listen to sometimes. Like it's, if you just kind of sit, take a little breath, does this feel right? And ask yourself those questions along the way. If you're not answering yes anymore, then it's time for a little bit of a change. But for me, the journey goes a lot more than just music and the water for me. I was an architect before doing music, and while I was doing music, but I left the architecture just to pursue music at that point, and and I haven't looked back. It feels like I wake up every day and I get to do something I love, and I feel like I kind of hit the jackpot when I was 15 years old, working at Vocal Art Studios. My first singing teacher, Liz, she kind of took me on board at 15 to teach young students, and I've been doing it ever since. It's so I feel very lucky and very blessed to be doing something that I love. And, if I can do this, for another 10, 20, 30, 40 years, I feel like I haven't worked a day then. So I think that's great. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
And I hope everybody finds that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, that's an inspired evolution. Live your inspired evolution. Brother, I just want to take a moment to just thank you for your time, your energy, your presence here today. I know, it's a very exciting, potent time for you. Little Tiago's waiting for you to jet set, go say good day. So thanks for carving out the time and the energy for being with us here today. But also, I know that it's a life's work, so this moment is informed by all the work you've put into yourself coming into this moment. So thank you so much for the rich, deep, wonderful conversation we've managed to have. And it means a lot to me just to have a brother on, just to be able to have some really deep conversations like the ones around death and legacy and stuff like that, which, sometimes don't get to come to the surface. So thanks for holding space for that as well, brother. Really respect and love who you are.
Can't thank you enough, mate. Thank you so much for having me on here, and, to everybody on the, that subscribes, thanks for listening. And, it's been wonderful, man.
Yep, go on. I just wanted to quickly tune in for those that want to tune in with you just before I forget. What's the best way to get in touch with the water, 3i Water, and what's the best place to check out Acaxia?
So best way to check out the water would be, you might find it at a local IGA or independent health food store near you. But if you can't find it, jump on our website, www.3iblackwater, number 3 letter i.com.au, and you'll see a list of our stockists on there for around Australia. There's a store locator. There's also online sales launching next week as well. So you can subscribe, and we can send you out boxes of water so you can at least have it once a day. Like you can have a bottle a day, the recommended dosages to feel the difference, and see if it's something that, that suits your diet, and see if it's something that kind of suits your lifestyle. Other than that, the music, you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Facebook, Instagram. So Acaxia with an X, ACAXIA. I guess we'll put the X in there so that when you search it on Google, it will be the first one that pops up. But you can find us on there. We've got some new music coming out in the next couple of months. But we've an LEP from last year last year you'll find on there, and a new release as well that was released a couple of months ago as well is on there too. jump on, have a listen, and get in contact with me for any of that. You can, if anybody has any questions around the water or anything like that as well, or wants to know more, it's just my name, Emanuele, Emanuele, at 3iblackwater.com.au, and I'll, more than happy to converse with anybody about it. Yeah.
Love that, brother. Thank you so much again for your time, your energy, making yourself available, for sharing your creative process, the creativity. And I just, really, really yummy to have you here again today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Amrit. I really appreciate it, mate. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Love of the Inspired Evolution and sharing the Love of the Inspired Evolution. If you feel like this content has supported you or may support anyone else that you know may resonate with the content of it, please share away and share the love around. Thank you guys so much. And to stay up to date on whatever's coming out with the Inspired Evolution, please subscribe. There's all these links in the bio for you to tune into the episodes and all these different platforms, just so that message can get to you and your loved ones. Thank you so much for all your love and support. Stay inspired to evolve.